Good morning, Britain. Coronavirus crackdown. Mask fines are doubled to over £3,000 as lockdown rules for bowling alleys, theatres, stadiums and salons are eased.
The last 4 or 5 days has just been obsessed with, are we going to be stuck? Are we going to go home and be in quarantine? And all the problems that brings.
Holiday chaos as France, Malta and the Netherlands are added to the UK's travel quarantine list.
The UK secures millions of coronavirus vaccine doses. In the last few minutes, the government says it has bought another 90 million jabs, although there's still no guarantee they'll work.
In the biggest celebration the Windy City has ever seen, joy is unconfined.
The royal family to lead VJ Day tributes over the weekend, with veterans determined to commemorate their fallen comrades despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic.
And we start the day with more thunderstorm warnings in place. In fact, they're going to last right the way through to Monday. Watch out for those heavy thundery downpours, particularly across the south. All that and more coming up on Good Morning Britain.
Friday, 14th of August 2020, live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Charlotte Hawkins and Sean Fletcher.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the programme.
Good morning to you. Yes, fines for repeatedly not wearing a mask are doubling. That's the latest news. It's taking the maximum penalty to £3,200. Boris Johnson has announced this new measure alongside easing up on the lockdown on leisure.
Yeah, bowling alleys, casinos, skating rinks and beauty salons are all opening again. Theatres and music venues are also going to be allowed to hold socially distanced performances. But for those holidaying in France, you need to be back in England before 4 a.m. tomorrow, or you will face a 14-day quarantine. We're live in Oxfordshire, Cheshire and France this morning.
Well, first of all, let's speak to Pip Thompson, who's in Bicester for us. Good morning to you, Pip. So there are some big changes happening from today. Talk us through the latest developments so people are clear about the new rules, about what's open from today onwards.
Yeah, well, I think you remember 2 weeks ago, Charlotte, that the Prime Minister did put the brakes on because of those fears of a second wave, or some people would prefer to say a resurgence. That is all changing from tomorrow. But what is also making the headlines is this issue of face masks, because just to put it into context, I've got one in my pocket here, that in a fortnight last month, police stopped nearly 30,000 people for not wearing them. So some people are still intent on not respecting the rules. So that means they are getting very tough. At the moment, the fine stands at £100. Well, they will be doubled and could be anything up to £3,200. Let me just talk you through some of the other changes that are going to be happening. So there's that mask issue. You must wear a face covering, a mask in an indoor place. I think the best way to think about it is if you are indoors where there are strangers, then you must wear that face covering. Otherwise, there is that huge fine. We'll hear more from Katie in a moment, but beauty salons, theatres, music venues will be opening from tomorrow, along with bowling alleys, skating rinks and soft play centres. And then there is also going to be a tougher penalty for those illegal gatherings of more than 30 people, those raves, those parties that we've seen in the news over the last few weeks. Fines of up to £10,000. But there is some good news, because those wedding receptions for up to 30 people can resume. So that is something positive. But all this does come with a caveat, because as the Prime Minister keeps saying, we must not be complacent.
OK, thanks very much, Pip.
Well, Katie Rickett now joins us from a beauty salon in Knutsford. Katie, close contact beauty services such as facials, eyebrows, threading and eyelash treatments, they're resuming. This is all good news for both salon owners and their clients, isn't it?
Well, that's right, Sean. Roberta Dyer, who you can see behind when I told her about this last night, because beauticians have had a really tough time. Not only did they open later than hairdressers, they were very limited with what they could do. If you look at what this is only about 30% of her business back massages, and the other 70% is those close contact treatments that we're talking about that she can now do from tomorrow. So Roberta, I know you're doing a quick treatment on your mum there, but how much does this change mean to you?
It's going to have such an effect on our business. We're going to be fully booked for the next 3 weeks. I mean, it's a big part financially of our business, but also what we do is so important. It helps people with their mental health, with stress, anxiety. So, you know, we're going to help the community in Knutsford who've, you know, everyone suffered in some way at some point from the pandemic. So, yeah. Looking forward to getting back to it.
Oh, great stuff, and you can see she is there. But there have been criticisms on the government's decision to put off some of these treatments because, for example, they were allowed to do beard trims at barbers, and Caroline Notes MP believes it's verging on discrimination.
There was discrimination against an industry that is dominated by women, that is full of female-led businesses, that is catering to the needs of women. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us who've been involved in the campaign to get the beauty sector reopened to make sure that that can never happen again.
Well, as Pip was saying, they are easing restrictions but also tightening them. So you may be seeing more of your beautician, but you might also see less of them if you're getting your eyebrows done because they will have to wear a mask and a visor while delivering those treatments. But really great news for them to finally be able to reopen and get their business back on track.
Katie, thank you.
OK, well, let's cross to Richard Gaisford, who's over in Calais now. The government has announced English holidaymakers arriving back from France after 4 a.m. tomorrow will have to quarantine for 14 days. Morning to you, Richard. How are people taking the news there? Because they haven't got much notice, have they, to change their plans?
No, and that's the point. There's a real sense of frustration that the announcement was made at 11 o'clock local time last night. For those that were awake, they were immediately trying to make arrangements, but websites were crashing, prices were going up, availability was going down. It was a frustrating experience, and I can talk from personal experience about that, Charlotte. We met just as that news broke, a family from Merseyside. They have decided to cut their holiday short because they'd heard rumours of a quarantine coming in. They didn't want to get involved with that, and they were really, really annoyed at the whole situation.
The last 4 or 5 days has just been obsessed with, are we going to be stuck? Are we going to go home and be in quarantine? And all the problems that brings.
Obviously, it's been a disappointment because it's the kids' first time abroad, but needs must, I suppose.
Well, I was quite upset because I thought that we was going to be staying a bit longer, but then we ended up cutting it short.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Well, then bumped into a family from Manchester who'd only just arrived in the country. They're on their way to Italy. They've decided to go ahead with that, but are making changes. The rest of the family are going to fly back to avoid quarantine, not coming back through France, and Dad's going to take a hit for the rest of them.
Been looking forward to this now for quite a while, and now obviously drop it on us last minute. We kind of half anticipated it, but I didn't actually think it'd happen. It's a bit of a shock, if I'm honest with you, but yeah.
Well, you've got to feel for those people who were waking up this morning, having not heard it last night because they'd gone to bed, suddenly realising they're going to have to make changes. This is a massive country, and getting back to either the Channel ports or on a plane at short notice is going to be incredibly hard. And Simon Calder, the travel expert, really believes it's a massive problem.
I calculate there's around 500,000 British holidaymakers in France right now, as well as up to 50,000 people in the Netherlands and a further 20,000 or so in Malta. Many of them thinking right now, how the heck do we get back to Britain by 4 a.m. on Saturday?
Well, it's not just France. Let's just take a look at what's going on from 4 a.m. tomorrow. It's France, as we know. We've also got the Netherlands going onto that list. Monaco, Malta, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and Aruba. All of those tourists coming from those places are going to need to isolate, and it takes a number of countries that Brits can freely come back from down to just 70 around the world. And you also have to feel, Charlotte, for those people who run businesses in places like Calais. It relies very heavily on the British tourist trade, and it's about to dry up.
Yeah, big disruption for them. Thanks for that, Richard, and for those whose holidays have been marred by this coming right at the end of it.
Now, this weekend will mark the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, which stands for Victory over Japan. Months after the end of World War II in Europe, tens of thousands of soldiers were still involved in bitter fighting in the Far East, often being called the Forgotten Army.
Tom Barton is at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, where they'll be commemorating all the servicemen and women who took part. Good morning.